Annyeonghaseyo, this is meowmurai, and let's continue our game of Despera Drops running on Nintendo Switch 2.
何が起きるか楽しみ。
これでいいかな。
では参りましょうか。
これでいいか。
Something was evidently changing inside Sally's heart. It was a simple concept once you put it into words. A feeling of fellowship. These were people who'd been running alone for so long. Perhaps because of that, even our simple chance encounter was enough to spur a great change. No one knew whether it was good or bad. That was likely why Sally felt confused.
それじゃあ、もうちょっとだけパトカーに近づくから、お姉ちゃんはこのパソコンの画面を見てて。アンテナマークが3本になったら、エンターキーを押してね。
Sally handed over the laptop that was connected to her phone.
わかった。
I placed it on my lap and stared at the screen intently. Next to a window that was crammed with rows of numbers and symbols that made no sense, there was an icon that reminded me of the signal symbol on my phone. At the moment, there was only one raised bar. Sally propelled the bike closer to the car at a speed that wouldn't rouse suspicion. My heart leapt into my throat. I prayed we wouldn't be noticed. Before long, 2 signal bars rose on the screen, and then 3.
アンテナが3本になったよ。
After seeing Sally give me a nod, I pressed the enter key on the keyboard. The word connected appeared on the screen. A little ahead of the police car, Sally stopped the bike in a spot hidden from view.
あんまり離れると、接続が切れちゃうからね。
Sally explained as I handed the laptop over to her, and she swiftly got to typing away.
よし、準備完了。お姉ちゃん、カウントダウンよろしく。
I took out my phone and dialed Ash's number. Right now, Gibb's phone was unavailable.
俺だ。
私です。ジブさんお願いします。
大丈夫だ。聞こえている。
It seemed that Ash had answered in speaker mode for our convenience.
サリーの準備が整いました。これからカウントダウンをします。
了解した。
I gave Sally a signal by making eye contact with her before starting the countdown.
3、2、1。今です。
Sally pressed the enter key. Immediately after, Gibbs' voice echoed out from the transceiver in the police car that was parked behind us.
応援要請だ。指名手配犯7人が人質を取り、ガレリアに立てこもった。爆発物と銃器を所持。全車両は現場に急行せよ。
As one would expect from my former professional, his performance was extremely convincing.
すごいね、パパさん。本物みたい。
I mean, he kind of was the real deal.
パトカーが動き出した。ガレリア方向に向かっている。3分待って、我々も移動を開始する。
The call ended with Gibbs' report. They must have been preparing for their escape. One by one, the police car set in motion and the temporary checkpoint was gradually lifted. Sally's tactic had worked. With this, we could escape the city soon. That was what I'd assumed, but...
あのパトカー、動かないね。
Upon a closer look, the officers were inside, eating hamburgers. They seemed to be in the middle of a break.
うわぁ、応援要請よりもご飯を優先するなんて、市民の税金を何だと思ってるのかな。まずいね。このままじゃパパさんたち、あのパトカーの前に出ちゃうよ。かといって、あの道じゃ U ターンもできないし。気づかれないってことはないかな。あんな目立つ5人乗りのカブリオレじゃ、さすがにバレちゃうだろうね。スピードも本気出したパトカーにはかなわないだろうし。どうしよう。このままじゃジブさんたちが。
Even if we called Gibb and the others right now, we wouldn't make it in time.
ああ、もうしょうがないな。お姉ちゃん、しっかり捕まっててよ。
The moment she said that, the bike's engine revved thunderously. Startled by the sound, the police officers inside the car turned to look at us.
はーい、おまわりさん。お仕事サボってちゃダメだよ。
Sally faced the officers and gave them a sweet smile.
ほら、お姉ちゃんも手を振って。どうも、ご苦労様です。
At Sally's ushering, I waved to them without thinking. At first, the confused officers nodded along, but it slowly dawned on them who we were, and their expression soured.
おい、あの二人逃亡中の犯人じゃないのか。今無線で全員がガレリアに立てこもってるって。
わからんが、とにかく捕まえるぞ。
The police car kicked into motion, accelerating towards us rapidly.
それじゃあ行くよ。
Sally pushed the bike to its limit, flying us off at max speed. With Sally's maneuvering, the bike bolted through the streets, blaring sirens following close behind.
そこのバイク止まれ。
止まれって言われて止まる人がいると思ってるのかな。
With an audacious grin, Sally worked the engine even harder.
ちょっと揺れるから振り落とされないように気をつけてね。
Sally swerved the bike to rush into a narrow alley.
ああ、結局おとり作戦になっちゃったよ。こういうのってラミー君の役だと思うんだけどな。
The alley was so narrow that one car could barely squeeze through, and the bike with Sally at the handle rushed through it at a berserk speed. And despite it all, there was a smile on Sally's face.
サリー、怖くないの？怖くないよ。だって一人じゃないからね。それに今お姉ちゃんを守れるのはサリーだけだからさ。怖がってなんていられないよ。
She smiled brighter, as if to reassure me.
とは言ってもこのままパトカーと追いかけっこしてても仕方ないし、お姉ちゃんさっきの地図で街の出口まで誘導してよ。
If we made even one mistake in these cramped and maze-like alleys, we might stray into a dead end. I took care not to be flung out of the sidecar as I fished out my phone and pulled up Bishop's map. There was a red line connecting us to the outskirts of the city. It seemed like it automatically calculated routes based on our present location. With this, I can navigate her to the exit.
わかった。次の路地を右へ。了解。
We made numerous turns in the complex network of alleyways until our bike rushed out onto the main street connected to the city's exit. There weren't any police vehicles parked at the checkpoint that had stumped us. Given the others must have been long gone.
やっと街から出られるけど、本当にしつこいな。
Sally raised her voice with vexation as she checked the rearview mirror. It was maddening. Even though we'd run in circles around town, we still hadn't managed to shake off the police car on our tail.
このままじゃみんなのところまでこのパトカーがついてきちゃうよ。あーもう、ハミー君とか怒るだろうな。
A moment later, the unexpected happened. Without warning, the car behind us swerved right, crashing into a trash can on the shoulder of the road. It stopped there. The officers jumped out of the stationary car and shouted something I couldn't hear. It seemed that they were safe, which was a relief.
あれれ、どうなってるの？
That was when I spotted a familiar car far in the distance ahead of us.
あれは
It was the cabriolet. I barely made out Gib in the back seat, holding something lengthy in his hands. Could that be the rifle?
うわ、パパさんすごっ。もしかして走ってる車の上からパトカーのタイヤを撃ち抜いたの？
If her guess was right, his skill as a sniper was practically supernatural. Thanks to that, we could leave the tenacious police car in the dust. They actually waited for us. There was always the option of pressing on without a care, but they'd chosen to wait instead. We were practically strangers who'd only ended up on the same police van by chance, yet they hadn't abandoned the two of us lagging behind. It was shocking, but more than that, it made me immensely happy. Chapter 4: The Deal. Switzerland, Highway, July 18th, 2028, Tuesday, 1534, Autobahn. After our escape from Milan, we reconvened near the Italian border. We parked on the shoulder just before the entrance to the Swiss Autobahn and checked on each other.
二人ともご苦労だったな。
ほんとマジで大変だったんだけど。
Sally crouched down on the ground and heaved out a sigh.
せっかくガレリアに警察を引きつけたってのに、結局はミラノを出るところをバッチリと見られちまったな。
しかもジブシがパトカーのタイヤを狙撃しましたからね。完全に警察に喧嘩を売った形になりました。っていうか人が乗ってる車から銃を撃つとかありえないし、僕の前ではもう撃たないでよね。
なんだ、銃が嫌いなのかよ。
いや、銃が好きなやつとかいたら普通に危ないやつだろ。あと、火薬の匂いも嫌なんだよね。
だが、あの状況では仕方あるまい。
そうだよ。パパさんのおかげでサリーもお姉ちゃんも逃げられたんだからさ。
助けていただいてありがとうございました。
君たちに危険な真似をさせたのだ。放っておくわけにもいかないだろ
しかし、あの距離で正確にタイヤを撃ち抜くとは大した腕前ですね。
あの距離では撃ったのが誰かはわからないだろうが、俺たちがミラノを出たのはもうバレてる頃だろ
いつまでもこんなところでおしゃべりしてる場合じゃないな。
そうそう。腹も減ったし、もう行こうぜ。
う。サリーも疲れただろう。車に乗るか。
どうしようかな。ここからは長いドライブになりそうだし、またお姉ちゃんが決めていいよ。
Yeah, I think Sally's probably exhausted after all that. Who should I ask to drive the bike? Oh, why don't I just drive the bike? Why do I
疲れ
have to
た
pick
から
somebody
少
else?
し休もっか。
これで問題ないか。
Okay. Ash, Samuel, Gib, Ram, Kamu. Hmm. Well, we're not going to hang out with Ram anymore. Hamu's out of the question. Gib needs to be in the car with the others. Don't trust Ash anymore. We can ask Kamu, I guess. Let's ask Kamu.
ここからはカメさんにお願いできますか？
Sally was tired knowing Kamu, I could make the request without overthinking things. That was what I thought at least, but
なんと僕なんかでよろしいんでござい。
even though I readily made the request, Kamu was unexpectedly the one who got worked up about it.
うわぁ、お姉ちゃんチャレンジャー。
バイクが心配だ。
大丈夫ですよね、カミュさん。
もちろん大丈夫であります。
Kamu swung his limbs over to mount the bike, and we set off on our journey into Switzerland. Or Switzerland. Kamu had been driving the bike quietly when, as the scenery began to change into more lush landscapes, he suddenly slammed on the brakes.
はあ、すみません。あまりに見事な景色だったもので。あれ皆さんは？
まだ後ろの方だと思います。
Each time I tried to talk to Kamu, he'd sped up without a word. We'd long left behind the cabriolet and its 5 passengers.
そうでしたか。では、皆さんを待つ間、せっかくですし、ここで休憩しませんか？川もありますし。
He voiced it as a question, but his eyes were totally glued to the river. They seemed to have captured his zealous interest. I couldn't argue that my legs were getting tired from being stuck in the sidecar so long. There wasn't much traffic here, so it was a suitable rest stop.
そうですね。少し休憩にしましょう。
Kamu's still like on a tourist on a tourist trip.
はい。
Switzerland, Mountain, July 18th, 2028, 1621, Tuesday, Riverbank. The moment he untangled himself from the bike, Kamu sprinted to the river. With his eyes bright like twinkling stars, he peered at the water.
綺麗ですね。
I walked up next to him and peered into the river as well. The water sparkled as it reflected the summer sunlight, looking cool and refreshing.
入ってみてもいいでしょうか？
はい、いいと思いますけど。
Seeing my nod, Kamu's face lit up. He walked to a shallow area a ways off, took off his shoes and socks, and gingerly stepped into the water.
これが川遊び。
For some reason, he said playing in the river in Japanese. He looked moved as he hesitantly kicked up the water before smiling with delight.
すごい！ 気持ちいいですね。これは画期的な遊びです。
Overjoyed, Kamo had a good time scooping up water with his hands and splashing it around. He reminded me of a carefree, innocent child. It looks like he's having so much fun. As I watched him play, an indescribable warmth filled my heart.
カミュさんってちょっと変わってますね。
変わってますと？僕、どこかおかしいでしょうか？川遊びを間違えているとか？
いえ、川遊びは完璧です。変わってるっていうのは犯罪者なのにいい人だってことで。
川遊びは完璧なのですね。まさか本場の人にそう言ってもらえるとは、これほど嬉しいことはありませんよ。
Was Japan ever famous for how we play in our rivers?
なるほど。これがいわゆる免許改伝ということですね。
いえ、私は別に川遊びの免許を持ってませんから。
いえいえ、それでも僕よりは詳しいはず。川遊びの師匠と呼ばせていただきます。僕のことはぜひ弟子とお呼びください。
よろしくお願いします、お弟子さん。
I ended up with an apprentice for something I'm still mystified about.
あなたも十分変わっていると思いますよ。こんな僕に付き合ってくれるのですから。
He smiled, and elegance radiated from him. He seemed like the last person you'd expect to be a mad bomber.
いやー、気持ちいいですね。実は日本のアニメで川遊びのシーンを見てから、一度でいいから川に入ってみたかったんです。父も使用人も危ないからと川へは行かせてくれませんでしたから、ようやく願いが叶って嬉しいです。
使用人？
ああ、はい。どこへ行くにも必ず父がつけた人がいまして、僕としては彼らとも仲良くなりたかったんですが、父がダメだと言っていたらしく、話しかけても全然返事してくれなかったんですよ。
カミュさんの家ってもしかしてすごい裕福なお家だったりしますか？
あれ、アインハルト家のことは知らないです？
ごめんなさい、疎くて。
いえ、知らないならその方がありがたいです。あまり好きではありませんから。と言っても、恵まれているのにこんなことを言ったら怒られますよね。ですが、それでも僕にとってはあまりいい場所ではなかったんです。それより今は遊びましょう。せっかくの川ですから。
Kamo scooped up water with both hands and tossed it up as hard as he could. The droplets sparkled like jewels under the sunlight. With a soft look in his eyes, Kamo watched the river. His gaze was an unusual mix of longing and loneliness.
ああ、二人ともいた。
When I heard Sally's voice, I turned to see the cabriolet finally approaching. Once they parked, everyone ran all the way to the riverbank where the two of us stood. Safely reunited, we collectively decided to rest along the river.
はあ、腹減った。
While everyone relaxed in their own ways, Gib opened the trunk of the car, retrieved something, then walked towards the river.
おいおい、どこに行くんだ？
魚を釣ってくる。ミラノで組み立て式の釣り竿を調達しておいたからな。昼食を食べそびれただろう。
魚？
釣り道具持ってんの？
安物だがな。
He took off the cap of a small pole that reminded me of a pen before promptly assembling the parts. In minutes, it transformed into a small fishing rod.
さすがベテラン、準備がいいね。
生き抜くためには必要な技術だ。
空腹でしたので助かりました。
すぐに用意をする。アッシュ、手伝えるか？
めんどくせえ。
Despite grumbling, Ash helped Gibbs' fishing efforts without putting up a fight. Maybe he was hungry too. Against the tranquil backdrop, Gib and Ash worked together and caught one fish after another. Kamu observed them enthusiastically.
ほほう、なるほど。この釣り針に石の裏にいる虫をつけて魚を釣り上げるんですか。
邪魔だ。
はあ、よくやるよ。
Hamio lounged nearby, reclining on the grass. As for Sally and Rom, the two of them were running around making their own fun.
うわ、変な虫がいる。
お、こいつがあればいい魚釣れるんじゃね。
やれやれ。ガキどもは元気が有り余ってるね。
Those two are impressive. A tiring long-distance drive with police after you would wear anyone down, but those two maintained their upbeat dispositions. Watching them made me feel pathetic for allowing dark clouds to constantly hang over my heart. Whenever I came to a stop and had the time to think, I just couldn't keep my festering anxiety in check. Two Europol officers, Rebecca, the mysterious woman who attacked me with a box cutter in hand. Was that assailant the one who arranged the police van that had transported us? Was she the one who had planted the bomb and tried to kill us? An opportunity for information had finally presented itself, but I came away with nothing because I'd been too desperate to escape. The seven of us were running together to hunt down the truth, but fear held me back from taking even a single step forward in our quest. Fleeing was all we did. We had our hands full just from evading our pursuers. The thing is, none of the others seemed to recognize or have any inkling about that woman. Instead of giving us an answer, she only had given us more questions. No matter how hard I worked my brain or organized the facts, I couldn't get anywhere. At any rate, I needed to get some rest. Following Hamiel's example, I sat down on the grassy field. A refreshing breeze swept across the meadow, gently blowing away the tension in my shoulders. It feels so nice. I had spent the past 2 days running from place to place. It felt as if it had been forever since I had time to settle down and simply enjoy fresh air.
元気出た？
Suddenly, Ram hopped over and looked down at me where I lay.
なんかずーっと難しそうな顔してたからさ。ちょっとは気分転換になったかと思って。
Yeah, Mika's it's kind of an interesting character. She's like so naive, you know. His grin was reassuring, warming my heart like a hearth. He noticed that I was feeling blue and was checking on me. As that realization hit me, hot tears prickled down at my eyes.
ありがとう、ラミーくん。少し。
本当？とてもそんな風に見えないんだけどな。
Ram leaned in closer and studied my face.
疲れてるっていうか、何か不安があるって顔してるよ。
不安。まあ、警察に追われてるし、それは不安だよ。
ああ、そりゃそうか。僕は追いかけられるの慣れてるけど、姉ちゃんは初めてだもんな。でも、そのうち慣れると思うよ。
I don't want this to be something I have to get used to, though.
それに、ずっと緊張してても疲れちゃうよ。リラックス、リラックス。せっかくの大自然の中なんだしさ。
Ram's optimism was contagious. It lifted some weight off my shoulders. He was a criminal charged with theft, but at the same time, anyone could see that he was a kind-hearted person who genuinely cared. I couldn't view any of them as merely criminal. Apparently that sense of fellowship had kindled in my heart before I knew it, too. But then the fact that we'd stolen the key from Rebecca's room last night was a sinful memory I couldn't forget. Recalling it made my chest tight. It was a crime I committed on my own volition. In hindsight, that might have been my last opportunity to turn back. Regret engulfed me anew.
魚が釣れたぞ。
I lifted my head at Gibbs' call. He'd returned, holding a comically large bundle of fish by their tails. Someone had already started a campfire, and Kama was beavering away, grilling from another large pile of fish.
やった！お腹減ってたんだよね。
Hold on, I'm pretty sure Sally ate lunch today. On that note, I'd also had lunch. But the mouth-watering aroma of sizzling meat drifted into my nose and my stomach was rumbling. We settled into a circle around the campfire and dug into the fresh fish. It's so good. I took a nibble. The fish was salted just right to be remarkably tasty. My hands and mouth began moving on their own accord, shoveling in bite after bite.
あー、やはりお腹に温かいものが入ると元気が出ますね。うわ、めっちゃうまい。これマジでここで取れたの？
Yeah, she's your typical anime girl that is real petite but somehow manages to eat a lot.
しかしまさか塩まで買い込んでいたとは、さすがですね、ジブシは。
Actually, maybe I shouldn't accuse her of being a typical anime girl. I know quite a few girls like that are incredibly petite but somehow manage to out-eat me, and it's rather disturbing.
調味料さえあれば意外と何とでもなるからな。しかしいろいろと買い込んだせいで懐が乏しい。後で必要経費の生産だけはさせてくれ。
いえ、そこ10の金額は入らないんだよね。
今後逃亡に必要な道具ではあるが。
おいおい、銃を振り回したら余計に包囲網が狭まるだろう。そいつは個人の買い物にしてもらう。
なら、車の整備費とガソリン代と、釣り竿と調味料の料金だな。
バイクの整備費とガソリン代もだ。
ならレシートをください。計算したらその分を7で割ってお二人にお渡しします。
I came forward as the resident's accountant and the pair took out their receipts. After they caught a glimpse of one of them, Sally and Kamu widened their eyes.
高っ。
はあ、車の整備費ってそんなにかかるものなんですね。
これは高すぎる。ぼったくられたんじゃないのか。
いや、足がつかない非正規の店を使う以上、割高になるのは仕方ないことだ。
もうちょい値切れよ。これじゃ俺は半額しか出したくないね。
俺もだ。
そもそも私に車を任せきりなのもどうかと思うが、きちんと必要経費は全員で割るという約束だ。払ってもらうぞ。
俺は払う気はない。
サリーも車にこんなに払うぐらいなら可愛い服買いたいな。
どうすんのこれ。
お前たち、協力すると決めたならば。
I'll pay extra. Let's divide it evenly. Just stop fighting. Oh, I know, and she's the accountant. You know, it's got to be bad. Let's divide it evenly. Just stop fighting. Isn't dividing it evenly what we were going to do? Yeah, that's the simplest.
私たちは運命共同体なんですから、みんな平等にしましょう。
平等だ？お前は学校の先生か？
僕はコミックを買えるだけのお小遣いが残ればそれでも構いませんけどね。お金なんかで揉めるのはバカらしいですし。うわ、なんか一番無駄遣いしそうなやつが言ってるよ。いえ、僕が買うものに無駄などありません。コミックも保存用と読書用と鑑賞用と寝室用と携帯用の5冊だけですからね。
5 copies? Oh, actually, I do know somebody like that. Not 5 copies, but 3 copies. I'll shake my head. I'm like, you're not going to touch one of these? Okay.
そういうのを無駄って言うんだよ。
神の無駄遣いはともかく、団体行動である以上、みんなが平等なのが基本だ。
Unfortunately, the only thing I ever buy 5 of is like hamburgers.
一人一人の能力も役割も違うのに、平等なんてありえねえだろ。
Or tacos, really. 5 hamburgers is a lot. 5 tacos? Almost nothing. I know, Hamiel's such a little troublemaker.
平和な国で育ったあんたにはわからないだろうが、この世に平等なんてものはないんだよ。
Hamiel glared at me while scoffing. What was the right thing to say? I was at a loss. That was when Gibbs sighed with resignation.
わかった。今回については私の交渉不足だったと認め、整備費の半額はこちらで負担しよう。だが今後は必ず当分させてもらう。残りの500ユーロを君たち6人で分割してくれ。
では私がその残りの500ユーロを。
ダメだ。彼らも半額までなら出すと言ったんだ。それには従ってもらう。
Gibb handed the receipt over to me, and though I felt somewhat uncertain, I registered it in our ledger. After that, I collected the fees one by one. Everyone had some form of frown on their face when they handed over the money.
はあ、こんなことちまちましなくても行く先ですればいいのに。
つーかこれ、毎回やるのかよ。めんどくさくないか？
同感だ。
いちいち徴収されるのちょっとやだよね。
確かに非合理的ではあるが、仕方ないだろう。これ以外に方法はない。
もっといい方法でもあればいいんですけどね。
いい方法ね。そんなもんがあるなら教えてもらいたいが。
I could feel the shift in mood. Everyone felt that the communal life was tedious. That was when a solution was proposed from the last person I'd expected.
なら、こいつに多めに持たせておけばいい。
Ash jabbed his finger in my direction, and I froze, confused about what he meant. The next moment, Camus struck his palm with his fist.
なるほど。共同で使う分だけ彼女に持ってもらって、そこから必要経費を払うようにする。というわけですね。
What?
あ、それいいじゃん。僕も賛成。ずっとポケットに突っ込んだままって、ちょっと落ち着かなかったんだよね。
He's been storing it in his pockets?
サリーも賛成。ハミーくんとかいちいちごまかしそうだし、お姉ちゃんが持ってる方がいいと思う。
そうだな。確かにその方が揉め事が起きる頻度は減りそうだ。
Oh, what do I do? Safekeeping our communal fund was a grave responsibility. I looked at Hamill, thinking he would object, but all he did was grimace before nodding.
ま、いちいち金を出さずに済むならその方が楽だしな。スリをあんだけ嫌がるこいつが持ち逃げするはずもない。逃げられるはずもない。会計係にぴったりだろ。
Believe it or not, everyone approved. Even Hamill, who seemed to have something against me, didn't think that I would run away with the money. I mean, sure, I won't ever do that, but what surprised me the most was this proposition coming from Ash, who the most solitary among us. Gibb decided on an amount, and this time everyone handed me the money without so much as an eye roll. I tucked all the bills into my wallet and placed it in my pocket. The heftiness of it made me even more nervous.
すごい顔。そんな緊張しなくて大丈夫だって。なくしたらすってくりゃいいんだから。
That means I had to be extra careful about keeping it safe. In a way, safeguarding this cash was also a way to prevent international crime.
まさしく適任って顔してるな。その調子で宿代も食費も支払い頼むぜ。
ミカならホテルの人にも警戒されなさそうだしね。
Maybe that's part of the reason Hamiel judged me as the suitable wallet person. Either way, now that I was in charge of our collective funds, I had to be even more vigilant. I had to keep myself on my toes at all times. I tightened my grip on my wallet like a lifeline, holding it close. After that, we ended our break along the river and resumed our journey to Zurich. By the time the sun set, we were only halfway there. Therefore, when we reached Altdorf, we decided to stay the night. Altdorf? I don't think I've ever been there. Switzerland, huh? July 18th, 2028, 21:37, Tuesday, at a bar.
あー、お
I'm sure I'm
腹減った。
pronouncing
パ
it
スタ
wrong
ない
too.
の？
When we entered Altdorf, the first thing we did was look for a place to stay. Then we made our way to a restaurant and bar to have dinner. The quiet vintage interior was cozy, and there weren't any other guests. The shopkeeper was watching TV absent-mindedly. He scarcely even looked at us. The dim lighting was the cherry on top. We were safe from being recognized as wanted criminals here. When we took our seats, Ash quickly skimmed the menu and called out to the shopkeeper behind the counter.
レシティを頼む。
こっちにはワインとチーズを頼む。
ブルストもあるのか。では、それとビールを。
ああ、僕はこのベジタリアン料理をお願いします。
てか、このメニュー読めないんだけど、ドイツ語？肉ってどれ？
これだ。
サリーはパスタがいい。
では、これと、これを。お前はどうする？
Ash's order, Hami's order, Gibbs' order, Rob's order, definitely not Kamu's order. I'm not gonna have vegetables. I mean, Wurst and beer is really good, but that's just me speaking. I don't know what would Mika want? I can't imagine Mika having a beer, so probably not that. Rom just wanted some meat, so let's say Rom.
じゃあラミー君と同じもので。
お、やっぱり疲れた時は肉だよな。
うん。大変な一日だったからしっかり栄養を取ろうと思って。ラミー君はお肉が好きなの？
まあね。本当のことを言えば、食べられるものは何でも好きだよ。
へえ。好き嫌いがないってことだね。
食べ物があるって、それだけですごいことじゃん。嫌いとか言って食べないとか、ほんとありえないよ。
Amen, brother. A while later, our dishes were carried to our table one by one. The appetizing aroma of potatoes drifted in the air, and I noticed Ash's expression soften.
そういえば、アッシュ君はスイス国籍でしたっけ？
ああ。
So that's why. Ash had appeared more spirited than usual as he faced the display of cuisine assembling on our table. Having the chance to enjoy the nostalgic taste of his homeland might be a source of joy for him. I'm feeling that Rami was super poor growing up. It doesn't seem like somebody who had like a good upbringing. Food was fundamental. Anyone who would ease up if they could enjoy the taste they knew and loved. Wait, food was fundamental. Anyone would ease up if they could enjoy the taste they knew and loved, especially when they were fugitives on the run. You know, I really hadn't eaten Japanese food in a long time. I hadn't paid a single return visit to Japan during my studies, which meant that I hadn't had proper, legitimate Japanese food for years. If I were in my day-to-day student life, I wouldn't have paid it any mind, but now I'm suddenly longed for the nostalgic flavors of Japan. I'd have indulged in the Japanese food I could find in Bologna if I'd only known that this would happen. I sighed and ate the food I did have. Just then, the restaurant entrance opened to allow another guest inside. The moment I saw his face, my breath hitched. Yeah, of
あな
course.
たは。
ようイカサマ連中、また会ったね。
This guy Bishop? It was the man who'd exposed us back in the casino who'd rescued me from that odd woman in Milan.
お前。
あのカジノにいた人ですか？
よくもまあ。俺らの前に顔出せたもんだな。
あんたのせいで僕たち、あの後大変だったんだけど。
そうだよ。おかげでサリー捕まったんだけど。
いやー、悪い悪い。悪事を暴くのが趣味みたいなもんでね。
なら店の方の不正を暴いてくれ。私たちは被害者みたいなものだろう。
そんなことしたら俺があの店から追い出されるだろ？
でもどうしてここに？
美しい嬢ちゃんをまた一目見るために。 というのは冗談で、君たちに興味があるからだよ。と言っても、本当に会えるとはラッキーだよ。多分ここら辺にいるだろうとは思ったが、こうして予想が当たると嬉しいね。
I like how she's just described as shady-looking man, but he looks very average.
つまりあんたは俺らを探してここまで来たってわけか。
ここを探し当てられるとは、随分な嗅覚だな。十分情報はか乱したつもりだが。
ただものじゃないな。
おたくらは、俺の飯の種になるかもしれない金の卵だからな。そりゃ必死にもなるさ。今話題の指名手配犯ご一行様。
僕たちが何者なのか知ってて追ってきたんですか？
そりゃそうだろう。今ヨーロッパで一番の有名人だからな。
それで、そこまで武装して僕らを追ってきたってわけ？そのジャケットの膨らみ、銃でしょ。
A gun? Hearing Rom's words, murderous hostility immediately radiated from all the others. Gun. That word pulled up the scene of this morning when he'd rescued me from that assailant. He had defended me with the gun, no questions asked. I'd been overwhelmed, so I assumed he had saved me, but in hindsight it was fishy. The perfect timing, the convenient gun he had on hand. What if he hadn't rescued me? What if everything that happened was according to his plan? I recalled the almost superhuman movements of that woman. If the man before us was on her side, then...
まさか、あなたは、襲ってきた女性の仲間なんですか？
I voiced my question shakily. The man spun a chair around in his hands and flippantly took a seat at our table.
あんな快楽殺人者じみた女と仲間だって？勘弁してくれよ。ジョーちゃんを助けたじゃないか。俺は、オタクらの味方だよ。
I gotta admit, that's a weird plot twist to just have a serial killer thrown into this whole this whole plot.
俺らを窮地に追い込むような見方は持った覚えがないね。
何の目的でここまで追ってきた？
まさか警察か？
Ash looked like he'd grab the man by the collar any moment now. As if expressing he'd come in peace, the man raised both hands and smiled.
まあまあ、そう殺気立つなって、店主に怪しまれるだろう。俺はオタクらを逮捕しに来たわけじゃないし、そもそも権限もない。ああ、白ワインを一杯頼む。
He called out to the shopkeeper and made his order with a smile. Then he fished out a worn business card from his coat pocket and presented it.
改めて挨拶させてもらおう。俺はフリーライターのカルロスだ。いわゆる、しがないジャーナリストってやつだよ。
カルロス・レオン。聞いたこともない名前だな。
俺の記事読んだことないか？名刺の裏に書いてある雑誌で記事とか書いてたんだけど。
Hamiel, who had accepted the card, flipped it over. The list of publications written on there, without exception, all unfamiliar to me. What kind of magazines are these?
なんだ。どこも三流記事で有名な雑誌じゃないか。
この雑誌ならサリーも知ってる。サッカー選手の移籍予想外してばっかのとこじゃん。
手厳しいね。
The shopkeeper came by with the extra glass of white wine. Carlos raised the glass in a toast, but no one went along with him. Shrugging, he took a sip. Seeing Carlos's leisurely and carefree manner, Hamiel sighed, sounding agitated.
で、そのフリーライターが俺たちに何の用だ？すっぱ抜いて金稼ぎか？
まあ、それもあるな。他にもいろいろある。
いろいろ？
まあ、ここは個人的な興味だと思ってもらっていい。
ジャーナリストとはいえ、この態度は感心しないな。いつか命取りになるぞ。
I really like Gibbs' voice actor. It's just he has very long pauses, so sometimes I skip his dialogue accidentally. His voice was subdued but menacing. Gib glared at Carlos, reminding him that he was facing a murderer in the flesh. But there wasn't so much as a ripple in Carlos's complexion. He showed no panic. He only indulged in his wine, leaning back in his chair and smirking.
俺だって命は大事だからね。きちんと相手は選ぶさ。つまりオタクらを信用してるってわけだよ。物騒なことはやらないまともな連中だろうってな。
I like Hamu's voice actor too, but he was also in Our World Is Ended, so I recognize him.
そりゃあサリーたちは悪いことなんて全然しないけど。
I think Sally was also in Our World Is Ended as well.
だろうね。警察の通信に潜り込んだお嬢ちゃん。
Carlos grinned meaningfully. The tension in the air skyrocketed.
どうしてそれを。
言っただろう。悪事を暴くのが俺の趣味だって。
はったりでしょ。サリーが証拠残すはずないもん。
まあそれについてははったりというか状況から予測しただけだ。証拠は掴んでないから安心しな。だが
Carlos downed the rest of his wine in one big gulp. He leaned forward and lowered his voice to a whisper.
他にあんたらが残していった犯行の証拠を俺は持ってるのさ。
Carlos took out his phone and showed us a photo of a drinking straw from the fast food restaurant.
何これ。
こいつは俺が持ってる証拠品だ。これを俺が持ってたら困るって元警官ならわかるんじゃないか。
Oh, this guy's super fishy, huh? He got a damn stalker. A murderer and a stalker after us.
DNA サンプルか。
そう。この紙跡の残ったストローには見覚えがあるんじゃないか。
Then Carlos swiped his finger across the screen to reveal a photo of Ram. In it, Ram was drinking juice on his way to Rebecca's hotel. Just like Carlos implied, Ram was biting the straw. Carlos was then even kind enough to take a photo of Ram tossing the drink in a trash bin, then one of himself picking up the straw. The series of photos made it very clear who the original straw owner was.
こいつを DNA 鑑定にかけたらレベッカの部屋に落ちていた紙と一致するかどうかわかる。そうすりゃあんたらが盗みに行ったってすぐに判明するだろうな。
嘘だろ。
ストロー拾うとかキモ。変態じゃん。
そこは突っ込まないでもらいたいね。ま、ジャーナリストたるもの身の振り方に構ってる余裕はないのさ。
なるほどな。ラミ、じゃあここらで俺らとはお別れだな。檻の中で幸せに暮らしてくれ。
ああ、ついでにこんな写真も撮れてる。証拠には不十分だが、関与の疑惑にはなるだろう。
The next thing Carlos presented was a photo of Camus and Hamiel standing near the hotel, likely when they'd been underneath Rebecca's window.
ただでさえ共謀して逃亡中だって報道されてるんだ。協力して盗みを働いたって線で捜査はされるだろうな。
おいおい、マジかよ。
へ、見捨てられなくて残念だったな。この詐欺師め。
Yeah, well, Hammy wants to leave this group as soon as possible. Hammy and Ash are, only in here because they're sort of forced to be here.
随分と用意周到だな。
周囲には注意してたつもりですが。
てか、なんであの部屋に忍び込んだこと知ってるの？サリーちゃんと監視カメラのデータも消しといたのに。
Sally fiercely pressed him for answers. Carlos winked at her.
はっきりとした確証はなかったが、やっぱり犯人はオタクらだったか。いや、ちょうどレベッカがホテルのロビーでカメラマンと話してたのを聞いただけだよ。釜をかけてみたがうまくいったな。
サリーたちを騙したの？
ジャーナリストだって言っただろ。
It's a little more than a journalist. A journalist isn't that smart.
ジャーナリストが詐欺師だったとは初耳だな。
でも、部屋から採取された髪の毛が、レベッカでもホテルの従業員のでもないと確認は取れてる。つまりこいつは、れっきとした犯行の証拠ってわけだよ。ちなみにそいつは、 今ここに持ってきてはいない。手癖の悪い坊やがいるからな。
こっちの特技も把握済みってわけね。
カジノで散々見させてもらったからな。
カジノで見たならよくわかってるだろう。今すぐその証拠品を隠した場所を言え。
Ash stared daggers at Carlos. It was written on his face that if Carlos didn't agree, Ash was prepared to talk with his fists.
そんな殺気だった目で睨むなよ。俺は脅しには屈しないぜ。伊達にそういう輩への取材はしちゃいないからな。
Ash smacked his hands on the table and prepared to get up. I hurriedly held down his shoulder.
アッシュさん、落ち着いてください。ここで目立つのは危険です。
Stealing worried glances at the shopkeeper, I spoke in a whisper. Following my eyes, Ash cast his glance at the back of the corner of the counter. He must have noticed that the shopkeeper was staring at us. After clicking his tongue, he settled back down.
さすがジョーちゃん、冷静な判断だ。いい猛獣使いっぷりじゃないか。
そっちの要求は何だ？
警戒しなくてもいい。おたくらに話を聞きたいだけだよ。つまりは、いい記事を書くための取材ってやつだな。
Yeah, so everybody wanted to interview us.
取材って。俺たちは大スターか何かか？
少なくとも、俺の手にかかれば、最低のゴシップ記事にもなるし、最高の悲劇のヒーローにもできると思うがね。
悲劇のヒーローですか？それは魅力的なお話ですが。
罠に決まってるだろう。ゴシップ記事の方が金になる。わざわざ俺たちをよく書く理由がない。
そいつはおたくらの出方次第だ。と言っても、俺の取材に応じてくれなければ、証拠品は警察に渡すけどな。
僕らを脅す気？
こいつは取引だ。おたくら全員の身柄をかけた。な。むしろ、取引を持ちかけるだけ親切だと思うが。
I don't know, Rebecca, was threatening their freedom too, right? With the tracking device and the handcuff key. I mean, she's not really any much better than Carlos. Stifling silence fell over us. Eventually, Hamil let out a lengthy sigh of what sounded like resignation.
取材には答えてやってもいいけどな。証拠品を俺らに渡すのが先だ。口約束は信用できないたちでな。
だろうね。だが先に証拠を渡せばおたくらのことだ。さっさとこんな町を出ていくだろう。
そこはきちんと約束を守るさ。
詐欺師の約束を信じろったって無理だろう。そうだな。じゃあ明日朝9時にマルクト広場のウィリアム・テルゾーの前で渡すってのはどうだ？
随分と目立つ場所だな。
しかも一晩俺らに待てっていうのか？
闇に紛れて襲われちゃ困る。朝の方が安全だろ？俺がね。
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess he's basically a tabloid writer. He doesn't have any respect.
言っとくが、来るのは一人だ。人目がある場所だろうと、問答無用で奪われるかもしれんからな。ということで、ジョーちゃん。明日は一人で取引に来てくれるかい？
私ですか？
君なら、証拠品を吸ったり、俺を殴って奪ったり、口先で言いくるめたりしないだろ
？Carlos looked at Ram, Ash, and Hamil in that order before smirking.
一番良心的に見えて無防備なジョーちゃんなら、俺も安心して取材できるってわけだ。
I was on the news as a murderer for all he knows. But it seems that Carlos didn't pay that any mind.
取引にはジョーちゃんが一人で来てくれ。で、他の全員は手の出せない離れた位置、そうだな。裏山にあるレストランのテラス席にでもいてもらおうか。取引の時には、君たち全員の姿がウィリアム・テルゾーの場所から見えること。そんで、ジョーちゃんが俺の質問に素直に答えることが条件だ。
Yeah, I mean, this guy is definitely not trustworthy, though. He is setting us up for something.
その条件が飲めるっていうなら、証拠品を渡してやっていい。どうだ？
どうだって言われても選択肢がないじゃん。しかも僕たちは高台で待機ですか。随分と警戒されてますね。
あんたらが近くにいたら、俺が負けるに決まってるからな。
随分と評価されてるんだな。
あのレベッカでさえ出し抜かれたんだ。警戒もするさ。とにかく、取引の話だ。どうする？
I mean, for all they know, that straw may not actually be the straw, right? I mean, he could have just picked a random straw, even though he provided photo evidence, but yeah, who knows?
ああ、言っとくが、俺を尾行して宿を探しても無駄だ。俺にしかわからんところに隠してあるからな。レベッカと同じ手は食わないぞ。
はあ、どこだよそれ。
それは明日までのお楽しみってやつだ。もちろん、取引を受けるかどうかは自由だ。だが、こいつは助言だが、俺の言う通りにした方が賢明だとは思うぜ。証拠品だけじゃなくて、俺はあんたらの手口まで知ってるんだ。俺が見聞きしたあんたらの手口を警察に垂れ込めば、より捜査の役に立つことは間違いないだろうな。少なくとも、同じ手は二度使えなくなる。さらには、証拠品で罪状まで増えて刑期も伸びる。おまけに、俺が記事にしちまえば、世論はあんたらが悪者だって方向により傾くだろうな。つまり、目撃情報につながりやすくなるってわけだ。囚人監視の中逃げ回るってのは簡単じゃないぞ。そちらの旦那は十分知ってるだろうけれどな。
Possibly recalling his past experience, Gib didn't object to Carlos's words.
明日、一人で行けるか？
I nodded, and Gib seemed to fall into contemplative silence. Only his eyes moved. He looked at Ash, then Hamiel, and lastly he looked at Carlos.
わかった。条件を飲もう。
I mean, he wants us alone, so he clearly wants to take us. Maybe give us to the serial killer.
交渉成立だな。明日の朝、待ってるぜ。
It's way too suspicious.
もちろん可愛い嬢ちゃんを傷つける趣味はないから安心してくれ。リラックスして取材に応じてもらおう。
Carlos smiled at me, left money enough for his glass of wine on the table, and stood up. Hamiel threw out one last remark to his retreating back.
最後に一つだけ聞く。お前、ビショップに聞き覚えはあるか？
Bishop. Now that he'd brought the name up, I recalled how the sender of that text had somehow known our location. Could it be Carlos? I stared intently at the man, but his only reaction was an expression of bewilderment.
ビショップ？なんだ？チェスでもするのか？
He didn't seem like he was playing dumb. He looked like he truly had no idea what we were talking about. After looking steadily into Carlos's eyes, Hamiel shook his head.
いや、なんでもない。忘れてくれ。
じゃあ、また明日な。
Okay, well, he's not Bishop. I guess that would be too easy.
とりあえず記録しておけ。
これで問題ないか？
Okay, well, why don't we stop it there? This is Mika Amamine. You've been watching
では、
Despera
後ほど
Drops
合流しまし
running
ょう。
on a Nintendo Switch 2. Yeah, boy, like
デスペラ
I'm
ド
really
ロップス
invested in this. I wasn't even sure if I was gonna like this, but this is very well done. Cast of characters great. Normally the music would be really good, but obviously that's all copyrighted material, so that's why you're not hearing it. Very intriguing plot, so thumbs up for me. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching. I will see you at the next stream. Oh, thanks, Topaz.